What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. How is everybody doing? Hope you're having a good Friday. I tell you what as well, you never know what's going to happen in the world of Manchester United. You never know. It's constantly... I was talking to Flex the other day and I was saying, it's weird at the moment. There's not so much drama going on at the moment at Manchester United. Boy, was I wrong. Because just as we're talking about the press conference and Ralf Rangnick's talking to the media just before he's about to speak to the media ahead of this game against Norwich at the weekend, what happened? Anthony Martial looks like he's leaving, or Anthony Martial certainly, he wants to leave. Anthony Martial, his agent, has come out and said that Martial's not happy and he wants to leave Manchester United in January. So we've got to talk about that first. We are going to talk, as I mentioned, about Ralf Rangnick's press conference because there is a match tomorrow. It's all very calculated. His agent, Martial's agent, is obviously going to the Raiola school of football agenting, in that just before a game or just before a press conference or just before, let's put it this way, just before people are going to be talking about Manchester United on social media, on platforms like this, on YouTube or on Sky Sports News or on whatever news platform you have, when people are actively searching for Manchester United, what do agents do? Bang, put out some news about their agent right there and then, and that's what we've seen. Anthony Martial wants to leave Manchester United in January. His agent has confirmed it. And I think also, we'll talk about the actual quote that he said, but I think also my immediate reaction was, okay, he's not playing that much. If he wants to leave, he can leave. Obviously, it has to be a good price, etc., etc. But also, as well, I don't think we should have a double standard here as well. No, don't get me wrong here. I don't think we can have a double standard. I don't think we can be so outraged when Paul Pogba does it and not also at the same time be outraged when Anthony Martial has done it as well. You know, the same things we cry out about Paul Pogba, he should come out and disavow his agent or disagree with his agent, blah, blah, blah. If Anthony Martial disagrees with his agent, he should say the same thing. But we'll get into it. As always, guys, smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe. Bottom right-hand corner. We'll get your comments up on the screen, as always. And let me know where you're watching from, too. Ryan G says, big up from the free seats, Owen. Thank you for joining us, Ryan G. You know me, our presidente of the free seats. I love getting everyone involved, as many people as possible involved. So let's get into this quote by Anthony Martial's agent, Philippe Lamboli. So I saw someone in there in a second ago or something, saying that it was Mino Raiola again. It's not. Anthony Martial's agent is not Mino Raiola. I believe he switched. I believe he switched agents previously. So this is not Mino Raiola. Mino Raiola has been talking. He's been talking because he loves to talk. He loves to hear the sound of his own voice. But Mino Raiola's been talking about Erling Haaland today, and I think he's touched on Paul Pogba. We'll just ignore it. But Anthony Martial's agent has come out, Philippe Lamboli, and said, quote, Anthony wishes to leave the club in January. He just needs to play. He doesn't want to stay in January, and I will speak to the club soon. So that's as direct as it gets. Really, that's as direct as it gets from Anthony Martial, and straight from the proverbial horse's mouth, as it were, when it comes to the agent. My initial reaction was, it's always a little bit jarring, isn't it? It's always a little bit jarring when an agent comes out, especially a big club, and goes, yeah, the guy wants to leave, he's not happy, he's going to go. It's always like, whoa, that's very direct. Sometimes it needs to be direct. But my initial reaction wasn't, it's terrible, Martial's leaving, all that kind of stuff. My reaction was, it's not really totally surprising. Let's be honest here, is it? I don't think anyone was stunned when it goes, Martial isn't happy because he's not playing. Okay. He's not playing. And if he's not playing, there's a World Cup next year and he wants to be involved in that, and he's still at an age where, he can still do great things in his career. So if he wants to leave. We've got a big squad. Ralf Rangnick just spoke about it in his press conference there. It's not as if we're struggling for players. We've got loads of players, especially in offensive positions. We've got Ronaldo, Cavani, Rashford, Sancho, Greenwood. Then you get into your Martials, and I don't know how long Lingard's going to stay around, but we've got so many players. And how many games has Martial played this season? He played against, Everton when he scored? The amount of games he started, you could really count them on one hand. And obviously injury and all that kind of stuff has played into that as well. But also it's just a case of there are so many players ahead of him. The only thing I would just say is we still have to get a good price. We still have to get a good price. There's no just because the player wants to leave and we should facilitate that to happen, it doesn't mean we should be letting Anthony Martial go on a cheap. Clubs will pay reasonable money for him. I think we should get more than what we paid for him. How much did we pay for him? It was one of those bizarre deals that with installments and the Ballon d'Or clause and all that kind of stuff. But you can let me know actually as well in the free seats. What do you think Anthony Martial is worth in this market, especially a January market as well? Or how much are we looking at? And, of course, a COVID market as well. Are we looking at... I just feel 50 million's too low. I really feel 50 million, something like that's too low. I'm thinking at least 60. I mean, again, I know people can say, Martial, he's not this and he's not that, and he's been a flop at Manchester United, but he's still young, and you still are buying a good player, a young player as well, who arguably hasn't hit his peak yet. We don't really know what his peak is. Maybe he has. I don't know. But United still should get a good deal for a player that's, a player that plays for his country, an international player. A lot of people are, this is interesting. It's very interesting. Some people are saying 40 million. Marlon says 70 million according to KG. I'm not really sure on KG's opinion on Martial now. I mean, he's a flip-flopper, so he might be saying the opposite. I don't know. I'll have to hear from him. I haven't heard from him. It's certainly interesting. Joel Lobo says, check Fab's story on Haaland. Raiola, angry faces. Is this about the thing that he was saying about all the clubs going in for Haaland? Is that what that was? I'll check it. Because this is part of the fun of being live, right? We can do what we want. So Romano saying the same thing about Martial wanting to leave. Okay, this comes from Sky Sports News as well, must be said. Always credit your sources. Anthony Martial wants to leave Manchester United in January. His agent Philippe Lamboli told Sky Sports News Anthony wishes to leave the club in January. He just needs to play. He doesn't want to stay in January. I will speak to the club soon. Here we go. This is what Raiola said to Sport 1 regarding Haaland. And I understand we're kind of all over the place. This is still... we will get to the press conference. We will still get to the press conference. There's so much to talk about. This is what Raiola said about Haaland. Quote, Erling Haaland will take the next step. Bayern, Real, Barcelona. As if Barcelona could afford him, by the way. You kidding me? Man City. These are big clubs he can join. Man City won the Premier League 5 times, significantly more than Man United. What is he on about? Well, in recent years, of course, in recent years, but overall, we won the Premier League the most times. Like, what? When we moved to Borussia Dortmund, we all knew this step would come. So, Raiola's doing Raiola settings. Haaland isn't going to leave in January. His release clause kicks in the summer. Look, to be honest with you, this is the problem with Raiola, and I don't know about you. I'm sick and tired of reading into Raiola's bullshit about what he's going in. Sometimes he will say stuff like this because he's had contact from Manchester United. Maybe United have already sent intermediaries to Raiola and Haaland and said, we want to buy him in the summer. We know there's a release clause. What can we do to make this deal happen? Ralf Rangnick's very friendly with Haaland's agent, his dad. Well, he's got Raiola's agent, but an advisor in his dad. He helped facilitate his move from Molde to Salzburg in the first place. If anything, that was part of the move to bring Rangnick over was, do you reckon you could facilitate a Haaland move? I wouldn't be surprised if Raiola's saying this as just a wake up to Manchester United, go, no, okay. And again, it comes back to Paul Pogba as well. He's saying, don't mess Paul Pogba around. If you mess Paul Pogba around, if you mess me around, Erling Haaland, I'll take him off the table, mate. I've got that kind of power and money. It's all games. It's all games when it comes to Mino Raiola. It really is. And I think the frustrating thing is he thinks he's this giant poker player, like he's playing 4D chess, but he is transparent as a window. He is transparent as a window in what he's trying to do. And don't get me wrong, he's very successful at what he does. Look at the players he has on his books. Look at the deals that he's facilitated and agreed over time. But when we look at this and he does a little bit of a jab at Manchester United, it's to get Manchester United's attention. It's how it works. He's saying, I know you want Haaland. I know you want Erling Haaland, but come on, let's play the game here. Don't mess me around. That's Mino Raiola. You know, you can read him like a book. You really is. You can read him like a book. We'll still be in for Haaland. We'll still trigger the release clause, but so will every club. Every big club in Europe this summer will have talks with Erling Haaland and Mino Raiola because the release clause is what? 50-something million, whatever, for Erling Haaland. That's nothing. Even in this current climate, it's nothing. So in the summer, loads of people are going to trigger that release clause, and Raiola knows that. So now he's just playing games. With all of those clubs, he said he's basically done, a come here call to Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Barcelona. They wish they're saying, can we pay in instalments in about 25 years, please? Not right now, but Man City and United as well. All of these clubs will want him. All of these clubs will want him. So he's just playing games, and that's what Mino Raiola does. He plays games, and like I said, he's just transparent as a window. That is what it is. But going back to Martial as well, and we will get onto the press conference. It's just this is what happens when you're just about to go live. But I wouldn't change it for anything. We've got over 400 people watching, only 80 likes. What's that? Or Josh shouting at me all the way from London, going, smash a like on the video. Pause, Owen. Pause. Ask him to take the shoes off. Smash a like on the like button. I can tell you now that's what Josh is doing. If he's riding around on his scooter and he's just stopped. He can feel it. He's like a Jedi. He can sense it in the Force. He's like, there's a disturbance in the Force. People aren't pressing the like on the like button. And now he's sending me like Jedi, telepathic messages. That's what it is. But yes, so enough about Mino Raiola. I live for the day that we don't have like a press conference or just before a match and he doesn't talk, but that's what he does. That's what he does. When it comes back to Martial, I'm not floored. I'm not surprised that he wants to leave. The only element that I think is surprising about this is just the certainty and the finality of his agent coming out and saying, yep, he wants to leave. I'm going to talk to the club. The agents put it out there in the media just because they're trying to basically, again, say to clubs, come and get me. January transfers are difficult to do. They're not impossible, obviously, but they're difficult to do, even though we have such a big squad. And in the grand scheme of things, let's be honest here, in the grand scheme of things, if we lost Anthony Martial, we don't necessarily have to replace him right now. We don't have to replace him right now because we've got so many players in offensive positions. If it meant getting this central midfielder that we're looking for, plus a little bit of investment from ourselves. If we sold Anthony Martial, and again, I know it doesn't work like this. I know it isn't like some people do when they go, sell Martial for 55 or 60 million, buy this player, buy Declan Rice for 75 plus 15. It does not work like this. It does not work like that. But if it did mean putting a bit of extra money into the transfer fund to get this defensive midfielder, or this box-to-box, I guess, midfielder it would be in Rangnick's formation, then I'm all for it. Whether or not it will happen, whether or not Anthony Martial leaves, his agent saying he wants to leave is one thing. How many times has Raiola come out and said Pogba wants to leave? He's still here. I know his contract expires in the summer, but yeah, these are agents. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see what Martial says. If anything, I doubt so. I doubt he'll say anything. I would be very surprised, to be honest, if Anthony Martial came out and said, it's true, I want to leave. But it has to be the right deal. It really does have to be the right deal, and we'll wait and see whether United get that deal. As far as who would come in for him, I mean, it's a handful of clubs, really, isn't it? I mean, PSG's an obvious one. But they even need to be they need to be careful about FFP. Like, FFP's a real thing. But their focus at the moment is keeping Mbappe, isn't it? And Real Madrid's focus at the moment is making sure they can get Mbappe next year. You can talk about Juventus. I think Juventus's money problems are, they've got issues. They've got massive issues. And again, I know Juventus topped their Champions League group, but how are they doing in the league? Not wow. The post-Ronaldo era of Juventus is not going too swimmingly in Serie A. Other clubs then available, again, you could talk about your Madrids or your PSGs, but I think their attention's elsewhere at the moment. And they have to be careful. This Philippe Lamberli has to be careful. Mino Raiola did it in the summer. Paul Pogba, he'd be open to leaving, and nobody came in. The market's a bit different now. 50 million, 60 million, especially to the European clubs where the funds are just tighter than they are over here. Fortunately, quite a few of the Premier League clubs, not to say they haven't been affected by COVID because they have, but because of just the sheer amount of money that's in the Premier League, they can still, certainly these big clubs, they can still spend money on players. It's different in Europe. It really is. Barcelona, they ain't making it. They lost half their squad. Real Madrid, like I said, they're saving up money to ensure they can get Mbappe. If they went after Martial, it would basically be a sign of, we don't think we can get Mbappe. Not to say that Martial and Mbappe is the same player, because they're not. But that might be abandoning their pursuit of Mbappe, which I don't think they'll do. Perez wants his guy, and PSG want to keep their guy. So January and Martial, I just think the options might be limited as well. I really do. When it comes to selling him to a Premier League club, I guess that's possible. But do United really want to do that? Strengthening a potential rival? I don't know. People are talking about maybe Newcastle. If Anthony Martial went to Newcastle, that would be insane. That would be insane. And I don't get me wrong. I understand Newcastle have this just unbelievable amount of money. He would play every week at the moment, but they're in the relegation zone still. And I think any big player, and I think Lingard will be having this dilemma as well, because reportedly Newcastle want Lingard, is that anyone that's a big player, a big name, an international level player, let's say, will be looking at Newcastle going, money's there. Next year, obviously, they're going to invest. January, they're going to invest, but they're still in the relegation zone. And who knows? Who knows whether they'll get out of that? Who knows? They got their first win of the season under Eddie Howe. What was that, last weekend? But who's to say just because Anthony Martial went to Newcastle, they'd stay up? I mean, realistically, who's to say that? They can't replace the entire 11 in January. So again, it's a risky one. It's a really risky one. And I don't know if right now your Anthony Martials and even your Jesse Lingards would be willing to take that risk. I understand money does talk, but also so does playing in the Premier League. And maybe it would just be a case of, they sign these deals and if they get relegated, they have a relegation release clause and they can go in the summer anyway. Maybe it'd be as simple as that. Maybe it's as simple as that. But we've seen that happen in the past as well with these clubs that they get a load of money and then they bring in these international level players, but they're ultimately taking a step down, competing in like a relegation fight, and they don't care. They don't care. Would you describe Anthony Martial as a fighter that's going to keep you in the league? Probably not. Probably not. And again, that's why the Newcastle one I just think seems a bit off. And ultimately, maybe money will talk, and maybe I will be proved wrong by that. It's not the first time, but it's a curious one, and it's certainly one that isn't going to die down, this Martial stuff, which wasn't really bubbling anywhere. People were just talking about Martial going, he's not playing that much, and we'll see what happens kind of thing, and maybe Rangnick coming in will change things. Obviously, Rangnick's come in, and Martial's just like, nah, I'm going, I'm off. And again, I don't really necessarily have much of a problem with that, as long as we get a good deal. Just because Martial wants to leave, I don't want to see him go for like 30 million or something ridiculous like that. Rangnick did talk about loans in this press conference, so maybe it could be a situation of a loan. Maybe it could be a loan for 6 months, say, or whatever, to the summer, and then it's a mandatory fee or something like that. We could see that as well, I guess. Time will tell. It's an interesting one. It's a really interesting one. Reportedly as well, and we'll get onto the quotes now, but reportedly as well, isn't it Joel Glazer's a huge fan of Anthony Martial? I think under in the Mourinho era, Mourinho wanted a shot of Martial a couple of times. Now, in fairness, I think he wanted to bring like Willian or something ridiculous, and it's like, that would have aged horrifically. But he didn't fancy Martial. He thought that he was lazy. We didn't offer a lot to the team. And reportedly, he said to the board several times we should get rid of Martial, and it was Joel Glazer, co-chairman. Joel Glazer is a big fan of Martial. Goes, no, I like him. He's staying. And if the chairman says that, what can you do? But I guess it's different, So maybe Martial's agent, he can talk to the club, talk to Joel Glazer. Maybe Anthony's going to have to go up to Joel Glazer himself, going, I want to leave, But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. It's an interesting one. But like I said, I think in the same vein of people when they give Pogba and Raiola a lot of stick for when Raiola comes out and says these things about Paul Pogba, I think it should be the same with Anthony Martial. There's no difference. Martial, if he disagrees, he should come out and say the same thing. He should come out and say something. I don't think he will. I think if the agents come out and said this, it's because Martial's told him to. Do I agree with the timing right before a press conference, the day before a game? No. But when a player wants to leave the club, I don't think they really care that much about the club's best interest. So we'll see. We'll see. That one will continue to play out. And of course, if anything does happen else while we're live, we'll talk about it here. But let's move on to the press conference because there is a game tomorrow. It's Norwich City versus Manchester United at Carrow Road. It's the evening kickoff, 5 p.m. kickoff, I think. Saturday Night Football on Sky, so be sure to check that out. I'm still kind of thinking about the Martial thing. Let's actually get your comments briefly, and then we'll get onto the quotes. Joseph said, Martial and Lingard to Newcastle. Well, they'd have to pay money. They've got it. Joseph says, maybe Real Madrid, Barca. I mean, the Real Madrid one certainly is a possibility. Again, I just think their focus is going to be on Mbappe next summer. And they've got money, but they've not got loads. Let's make no mistake. Spanish football was hit very hard with the pandemic in terms of finances. Barcelona, I think it's impossible. I really think it's impossible. I kind of laugh every time I see every time I see Barcelona want to sign this player, Barcelona want to sign Paul Pogba in the summer on a free. Are you shitting me? The guy's on what? How much wage? Like 200, 250, something ridiculous like that, maybe even more. You're telling me Barcelona can afford those wages? They couldn't do that. Dani Alves has had to go there on like €1 a week because they can't afford anything because of their registration rules. They can't. They're going to bring in or spend 60 million on Anthony Martial and pay him wages of 200k plus a week. That's just not happening. Unless, of course, they sold players, and maybe they will. You know, there's been rumours about De Jong leaving and all that kind of stuff. Maybe that will happen, but I don't know. And again, would you really want to join the Barcelona project right now? If it was me, I'd be like, Barcelona are great, but why would I be going there now? You know, they're a sinking ship at the moment. Will they come back? I'm sure they will. Football is very cyclical like that, but it will take a lot of time. It really will. Anyway, press conference. We'll talk about the press conference. First question was from Simon Stone to Ralf Rangnick ahead of the game tomorrow night at Carrow Road. He said, having left a team out, is the intention to bring them all back tomorrow for the game in the Premier League? And how did training go this week? So Rangnick revealed, this is what he said in the quote, we trained in 2 different groups before the game on Wednesday. The group that played against Palace had a day off on Tuesday. He also mentioned as well that, so they trained in these 2 different groups. So essentially the team that played Young Boys trained separately and prepared for that game on Wednesday, and the other group had a day off on Tuesday, and then they prepared Wednesday, Thursday, Friday as we build to tomorrow's game. They also mentioned that they come in at 2 p.m, so he hasn't even had a chance to talk to them about the game tomorrow. But that was kind of the situation there, and I think, to be honest, it's smart in the current circumstances. We have seen quite a few positive tests, haven't we, in the Premier League this week? Obviously, the Spurs game was cancelled midweek. It's cancelled as well at the weekend against Brighton. It makes sense to train in separate groups at this point in time, doesn't it? I mean, that just makes sense. Not just from a tactical and training point of view, just in general from a health and safety point of view. I think that makes sense. So that's the case for them. He didn't really mention that he was going to play the exact same team, where all of those 11 were going to come back in. But given the fact that you've got 2 groups training individually, implies that other group is preparing for tomorrow, and that other group was just purely focused on Wednesday. So I think it's very unlikely it's unlikely any of those players, to be honest, start. I really do. I mean, there's 1 or 2 that maybe could come in, but we'll get to that later on. But that's kind of the situation there. The next question was from Jamie Gardner. By the way, it was a really short press conference. That's why I was so quick to go live, because I think it lasted, I'm not exaggerating, like 10 minutes, if that. It was so quick. So the next question was from Jamie Gardner. It was about, are there any fresh injuries or illnesses when it comes to the game tomorrow? Rangnick mentioned there were 2 or 3 question marks, but he doesn't really know about them at the moment since they haven't actually shown up yet. Training's at 2 p.m. today, so he said after training we'll talk to the medical staff, the doctors, etc., the physios, and see if these people that do have question marks are available at the weekend. Specifically, Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Nemanja Matic, they have question marks around them. Rangnick said, quote, Aaron received 1 or 2 knocks in the game, obviously against Young Boys. There's still a question mark behind Matic, who had sort of a cold. I wouldn't call it a flu, but he has tested negative for COVID. When it comes to Matic, I don't expect Matic to start at the weekend. I think he would just rather have him available on the bench for if we're winning, secure things up. Wan-Bissaka, I never felt he was going to start anyway, especially after the performance on Wednesday. But then given the injury knocks he had, obviously he came in with that hand injury he suffered against Chelsea, and I think he had a couple of nasty challenges as well. He fell off the pitch, didn't he, at the end of the game? I say fell off. It's not like he was drunk. You know, it's just Old Trafford's on that little, it's on like a pedestal, isn't it? When you go there, it's actually very surprising. You have the pitch and you realise actually how high up the pitch is in comparison to the rest of the ground. It's got that sort of the brick wall around the bottom. It's so unique. It's great. But yeah, Wan-Bissaka had what quite a few people have had at Old Trafford is when you slide off the pitch, not only do you take a drop, but there's like bricks and you go into the advertised hall and it can be a bit nasty. So he's still a doubt for the weekend, so I don't expect him to start, to be honest with you. The next question was from Gary Cottrell, who asked a question about Paul Pogba. Paul Pogba at a press conference. It's about time, isn't it? I haven't spoken about Paul Pogba in a press conference for a while. That's when you know a lot of stuff's going on. That's when you know a lot of stuff's going on when Paul Pogba doesn't get asked in a press conference. Earlier on in the season, when, not to say when things are all good, because they weren't, but early on in the season when there wasn't all that pressure on Ollie, every press conference, you'd get at least one Paul Pogba question. You'd get the cursory Ronaldo question, how great is it to have Ronaldo? And the other one you'd get is, Paul Pogba, is he going to stay? And you're like, every single time. He was asked a question about Paul Pogba. Stephen Hayes says the press conference was 7 minutes. Yeah, very short, very, very short. Liam said, what's happened to the Full View Forum thing? It will be coming back. It will be coming back. Of course, the last couple of weeks have just been a bit crazy, so we haven't been able to do them. It's always difficult as well when we do them when we have a game on a Sunday, because we like to do them the day after the game. But then the problem is we would want to do it on a Monday, but sometimes there's a game on a Tuesday. It's just been a scheduling thing. Hopefully it will come back this weekend, but it also depends on everyone being available. If only one or two people are available, it's not really much of a full view, is it? So hopefully it might come back at the weekend. If not, it'll be coming back the week after. It is coming back. It's a staple here on United View, and it's a lot of fun to do, to get everyone together. It's like the meeting of the families. It's a lot of fun to do. So it is coming back. Don't worry, it hasn't gone away or anything like that. So let's get to this Paul Pogba question from Gary Cottrell, Sky Sports. Said, Paul Pogba, by the time he's fit to play, you'll have established the way you want to play, your system and your tactics. Therefore, how difficult will it be for Pogba to get in your starting 11? And it was quite interesting, actually, what Rangnick had to say. He said, quote, we spoke over the phone on Tuesday. He was still in Dubai. He is expected to come back today, and then we'll get to know each other in person on Sunday. We have had a telephone call. He told me he is getting better, but he's still not fully fit. From what I have heard so far, it will take another couple of weeks until he can train again, and then be out for quite some time. So then it will take another couple of weeks for him to get match fit. In the first instance now, it's important he gets fully fit in order to be able to train with the rest of the group, and then we have to develop him physically and technically to also be fit to play in the Premier League. So Rangnick's basically said it's probably going to be, I would say, at least over a month before we see Paul Pogba even involved when it comes to team selection or anything like that. It's going to be a couple of weeks, so maybe 2 weeks until he's able to train. Then he's going to have to train for at least a couple of weeks to get up to speed and ready for team selection. So we're talking about, again, a month, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. So we're looking at maybe early January, mid-January, maybe late January for when Paul Pogba is going to be playing once again for Manchester United. And the reporter, Gary Cottrell, is right. By that point, you would have thought that Rangnick would have really, well, at least got further in implementing what he wants to implement in this Manchester United side. I don't think it would necessarily be difficult for Pogba to get back in. Paul Pogba's a good player, and Ralf Rangnick will want to play him. I think the difficult thing might be, when it comes to 6 weeks' time, is even more discussion is going to be around Paul Pogba's future, because, of course, once we get to January, unless something happens between now and the end of the year when it comes to a contract extension, which I don't think it will, but unless something happens between now and the end of the year, Paul Pogba can and will be speaking to clubs in January for a free transfer move at the end of his contract in the summer, and that is going to rumble on. And that's been my prediction for the whole time I've been on United View, was that I don't think anything's going to happen to the end of the season. I would be very surprised if Pogba came out in January, February, March and said, I'm going to PSG, I'm going here, I'm going there. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if he came out, maybe in the spring and said that, no, I'm definitely going to leave, in the same vein that, like Ander Herrera kind of did towards the end of the season. I'm going to leave on a free transfer, but we didn't necessarily know. I think the PSG thing was announced right towards the end. I think the Pogba thing's undecided. From the reports that we've seen, it's that, with Rangnick coming in, he's open. And I think he's always been open to staying. I really do. I always think he's been open to staying. It's just been a case of success at Manchester United. I don't think it's necessarily a money thing. I really don't. If it was a money thing, he would have stayed at United a while ago, because United are offering him more money than practically any other club, maybe bar PSG, but we don't even know if he's had conversations with PSG. I think it's a success thing. And certainly if his agent is saying that Man United aren't as big as Man City, or Man City have won more Premier Leagues than Man United, he must have been recently. Otherwise, apparently football began in 2008 when it comes to me and Raiola. Very bizarre. Even in that case, we've won more Champions Leagues than Manchester City. If football began in 2008, we've won the Champions League more than they have. So, Mina, come on. If you're going to play this game, make sure you get it right. But Paul Pogba pantomime is going to continue to rumble on. It always will. It always will. So anyway, let's talk about the next one, which was, I don't know who it was from. It was very difficult to hear the reporters' names today. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it isn't. Vaishab says, I see Pogba leaving in the summer. Just like Martial doesn't fit in the system / style of play Rangnick wants to implement. I guess it's part of the problem as well with the interim title that Rangnick has as well. That Maybe Pogba doesn't fit into this style. Again, we don't know. Maybe he will. I think in that system, the 4-2-2, you've got these advanced players that aren't necessarily wingers. It's just Paul Pogba's ability, not even ability, he could if he wanted to, but it's his desire to press the ball, which isn't really there. Again, it depends. It depends. But also as well, again, it's the interim title. So, maybe he doesn't fit under Rangnick, but say if Ten Hag or Pochettino came in, they're slightly different than Rangnick, and maybe he would fit in there. It's difficult. But I think elite players can fit. I think elite players can fit, but I don't even know if it's about that. I really think it's about success. If Man United play super attractive football and win the majority of their games this season and have a decent run in the Champions League, it will turn Pogba's head because he might think something's happening here. If we still remain as we have been for the first half, let's say, of this season, or first third of this season, and that's been pretty mediocre, if we play how we've been playing for the first third of the season, we won't even qualify for the Champions League. So I think it will all depend on results at the end of the season. But that's Paul Pogba. The next question was about how would you sum up your first week or first 7 days in Manchester United? What have your main challenges be? That's what the crazy thing is. Wow, it was 7 days ago. I only realised this morning. It was 7 days ago that we were here talking about Rangnick's first press conference, the one that was at 9 o'clock in the morning. It feels like a lifetime ago. It feels like a lifetime ago already. So much has happened over the course of the last 7 days, whether it's the 2 games and just everything. It's crazy. Time just boom. It goes so quickly, but so much can happen in such a short period of time. So he said, quote, in the first instance, it was about getting to know the players. We had 45 minutes before Palace, and we did quite a lot of video footage with them in order to get them to tell them how we wanted to play. As we all saw, they did well in that game. We were always on the front foot. We had control of the game. Now it's about taking the next steps. What we showed against Crystal Palace was good. We didn't allow them to score or give them many opportunities. So basically, the challenges are what he said in his first press conference, really. The challenges are to, in this short period of time, try and implement something. His challenges in this short period of time are to try and, I think the biggest challenge, to be honest, is to win over the players. And we kind of have already seen it. We saw it in the first 30 minutes, 45 minutes against Crystal Palace. When you play this style of football, when you have the 4-2-2 formation and you want them to be showing this high energy, high pressing kind of patterns of play, you need them to buy in. You can't do the running for them. You have to inspire them and you have to make them want to do that work. And you have to also win them over in that you believe everything he's saying. You go, yes, I believe what this guy is telling me to do is best for me and best for the club to get the results. And I think he's already been proven right by that. The game against Crystal Palace, we had a clean sheet. It's third of this season. So we can say, look, if you play like this, you'll keep clean sheets. That wins over the defenders. That wins over the goalkeepers. When it came to even the mistake against Young Boys, and this is a different side, but he said in the interview after the game, he said, I told them several times before the game, don't be passing the ball in that first line of the press against Young Boys because they will punish you for it. And what happened? They're passing it around in that first line of the press. Donny makes a mistake. It's a short pass to Wan-Bissaka, and he whips it in the top corner. No mistaking the finish, but he's also saying there, actually, I told them about that. I warned them about that. And sometimes you almost need things to go a little bit wrong to win people over. So when they come back in, I know people say, I don't like to say, I told you so. But sometimes you do have to actually say, look, I told you so. I told you that would happen. It would happen. Next time, make sure you listen to what I'm saying. Next time, make sure you follow my instruction and you'll win the game and you'll have success. So I think really, that's what this last 7 days has been trying to implement the system, trying to implement the philosophy, but also as well, it's about saying, look, what I'm telling you works. What I'm telling you can bring you success. If you listen to me, we can still be successful this season. That's the biggest challenge. And from the interviews that we've seen, I think McTominay did an interview with Sky Sports ahead of tomorrow's game. Will be aired. I mean, clips of it have been on social media on YouTube, but it will air before the game against Norwich tomorrow. He was saying that behind the scenes, Rangnick's very stern. He knows exactly what he wants. He's very open in getting what he wants. And if you're not doing it right, he'll tell you. And I think that's what we need. I think that's what Manchester need right now. We talked previously, right, about passion and desire and all that kind of stuff. What we need right now is we need that extra level of tactical knowledge, and we need that discipline. We need that discipline. Standards have been way too low, and the standards need to be higher. Conceding a goal, Old Trafford, unacceptable. Unacceptable. It needs to be as simple as that. So, again, I think that's his major challenge. Over the last 7 days or so. Joseph says, amazing how time flies. It really is. It really is. The unofficial Diamond Eye says, give Martial a loan with an obligation to buy. I could see that. I could see that happening in the summer. Again, depending on who it would be. That's interesting. Marlon Clark says, Alanga over Martial. Well, even that's an interesting one, isn't it, Marlon? Because... And maybe that's the tipping point for Martial. Again, I know he's been injured, so I think Martial would have been featuring under Rangnick. He would have, but he's got a knee injury at the moment. Rangnick said so in the press conference before the Young Boys game. He mentioned against Palace that Martial trained on the Friday, or the Saturday rather, and then after they did the training session, he was having discomfort in his knee. I don't even think he's going to be available for the game tomorrow because of this knee injury. So he's had a lot of injuries as well. So I think also that's worth pointing out too. You can't play if you're hurt. And yes, when he hasn't been hurt, he's been on the bench, but hasn't he been injured more often than not this season, I think? So again, that's different as well. David Harrington says this, and this isn't the first time someone said this. Appreciate the chat, David. Says, try sweeten the Dortmund up by offering them Martial. I mean, look, people will say, well, that's silly because you're triggering a release clause. It's not even up for Dortmund to accept. But you certainly could maybe sweeten it in the sense of you say to Mino Raiola, look, this Haaland loves Dortmund. He loves Dortmund. You know, it was always going to be a stepping stone, but he loves Borussia Dortmund. Why wouldn't you, if you make sure that Haaland goes to us, we'll make sure Martial goes to Borussia Dortmund. And then the club are benefiting from that. Not only are they getting money, but they're probably not getting the money they should be getting for someone like Erling Haaland. So if you make sure that Haaland comes to us, we'll say to Dortmund that they can have Martial. Sweetens it up, and maybe that's what it will take. Now, to be honest, does Raiola have the best interest in Borussia Dortmund in mind? Of course he doesn't. He's an agent for a player, so he doesn't care about Borussia Dortmund. But maybe Haaland will. Maybe that's what it will be. So I do think it's a good point. The next question was from Katie Cassidy, and it was about goalkeepers at Manchester United. Now, the goalkeeping stuff's been a rumbling thing, hasn't it, well, ever since the beginning of last season, really, when it came to Dean Henderson coming back and what was the situation going to be with that kind of stuff. So I'll just make sure I get this quote right. This was it. He said, quote, there might be one or two of them, goalkeepers, wanting to go out on loan somewhere. But on the other hand, we have to keep in mind we have 3 competitions in the next 6 months. He mentioned about possibly needing 3 keepers for those 3 competitions. So the goalkeeping thing, my opinion really hasn't changed since last season. It was always heading to this. When you have, David De Gea and Dean Henderson, and you gave this big long-term contract to Dean Henderson, it's always going to end up like this. I think eventually, at the time, their intention was that Dean Henderson was going to replace David De Gea. As time's gone on, I think it's become pretty obvious that Henderson, he can do a job for Manchester United, but is he really the level we should be looking at from a Manchester United goalkeeper? I don't think so. And I think that his performances this season, David De Gea, have been outstanding. If you want to talk about players of the season for Manchester United so far, it's Ronaldo or De Gea. Either one, pick your fancy. It's those two. Whilst Ronaldo has been carrying us through games in terms of goals, specifically in the Champions League, David De Gea has been keeping us in games. Those goals mean nothing from Cristiano Ronaldo if we're 5 or 6-0 down, and in certain games it could have been, and we have been against Liverpool, but in certain games it could have been way, way worse if it wasn't for David De Gea. We've been conceding all of these goals. We've only had 3 clean sheets this season, but again, that speaks volumes to how bad defensively we've been this season. It really does that. Even though we've been conceding and shipping goals, our goalkeeper's arguably still been our best player. So I think when it comes to January, I wouldn't be surprised if Henderson does leave. Whether it be permanent or not, I think it kind of has to be at this point, doesn't it? De Gea isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And he shouldn't. And he really shouldn't. I think De Gea's firmly planted the flag that's his spot in the Premier League, in the top in the goalkeeping position. And Ralf said it himself. He said De Gea we have a top keeper as 1. So Ralf Rangnick basically said De Gea's the number 1. And if Henderson decides to go, again, maybe it's a loan. I think at this point in his career, he probably needs something more permanent. Now, we mentioned previously about Martial or Lingard going to Newcastle, and I wasn't sure if they would be willing to take that risk. Of course, money talks, and of course, it's a massive project there. And if they do stay in the Premier League next season, they will continue to invest significantly, and they'll be I don't know if they'll be challenging for anything, but they'll certainly be a side that people don't want to play against because they'll have good players at that point. But right now, Dean Henderson's a player that I could say, yeah, I could absolutely see him going there. Absolutely, 100%. Because again, you talk about, if he gets relegated, what happens there? I think it would. That's a move that I think fits. And to be honest, like I said, if I was an agent, which I'm not, thank God, but if I was an agent of any player right now, I'd be saying, well, yeah, sure, go to Newcastle. Just make sure you get a clause that says if they get relegated, you can leave. Maybe it's as simple as that. So I could certainly see Henderson going in January. Some people were getting very much like even the way he came off. When he came off against Young Boys, not only did he applaud the crowd, but he also was waving to people. He might have just been waving to family in the stands, of course. But he might have been waving goodbye. Some people looked at it there as well. And we've got, 5 goalkeepers? So I could certainly see Henderson going in January. But I think there are going to be outgoings. There 100% will be outgoings. As far as incomings, maybe 1, but I think outgoings, there's going to be quite a few, actually. David Lee is in the chat. Big up the moderators. As always, big up the free seats. Saying like, share, and subscribe, guys. Yes, as I mentioned, we've got nearly 700 people watching and only 239 likes. See if we can get it up to 300. Got to pump up those numbers. Those are rookie numbers. That's Matthew McConaughey. He's talking about something else in Wolf of Wall Street when he says that. He's not talking about likes on YouTube, but yes. Let's up those like numbers. The next question was from Michael Gray, and he asked Ralf Rangnick, how have you been able to assess the transfers? Have you been able to assess the squad rather when it comes to transfers in January? Have you been able to get to know the squad and know that who is going to be leaving and who is going to be staying in January? And to be honest, again, it's a question that he's got to ask, but it's kind of a question of like. Of course he hasn't. It's been a week. Of course he hasn't. But he said, quote, I've got to know them better this week. I saw most of them play in 2 games and had 3, 4 or 5 training sessions, but it's still too early to speak about what might happen in the winter transfer window. He also said, though, quote, we need to make sure the players want to stay here. If they see not getting enough game time here, it might make sense to speak individually with the players to see if a loan deal might make sense. But right now, it's still too early to speak about that. So at least Ralph's not naive. Ralph's not naive in that there are going to be players that are unhappy with their playing time. I'm sure that he said he spoke to Ollie, and I'm sure he mentioned the other members of staff at the club. I'm sure when he spoke to them, they said the same thing. There are players there who are not happy because they're not playing. And Rangnick probably, again, because he's no fool, probably looked at it and went, of course they're not happy. We've got this ginormous squad. If anything, we've probably got too big of a squad. Certainly for the competitions that we're still in. We're in 3 competitions still, so there is opportunities to rotate. If we were still in the Carabao Cup, you would say, okay, we've got a big squad, we can rotate around, but we're not. We're not, and we find ourselves in a position in the Premier League where we're going to need to rotate over the holiday period. There's no doubt about that, but we also need to be winning games. We need to be getting results. So I'm sure there will be loans in January. I'm sure there'll be departures in January. Whether that's Anthony Martial, again, I think that depends on the deal. But when it comes to someone like Dean Henderson, I could absolutely see him going on loan. Donny van der Beek, I think that one's still up in the air because I do think he'll get game time under Rangnick. But certainly there are names. Absolutely there are names that could go out in January on loan. I think Ahmad was going to go out on loan in the summer anyway to Feyenoord, but he got a knee injury or a muscle injury rather. So that didn't happen. I could see him going out on loan in January as well. So again, I think he's being like he's always been in these press conferences, and that's, very honest, very direct, going, at the moment, I don't really know, and I couldn't really say it as if he's going to tell you anyway. Yeah, we're going to get rid of Martial, Henderson, Lingard. They're all going in January. Of course, he's not going to say that. But he's like he said, we'll speak to players individually, and maybe we'll sort out some loans, and maybe we'll sort out some outgoings. But I expect to be quite a few names leaving in January, and there should. There's nothing worse than having unhappy players at the club, especially when it's causing unnecessary drama. Ralf Rangnick's spinning enough plates at Manchester United as it is. He's an interim manager trying to implement a philosophy and a tactical style, and also trying to make sure that Manchester United finish in the top 4 because we haven't been playing well this season. Also making sure that we're trying to keep clean sheets. Also making sure that we actually, go to the latter stages of the FA Cup, and maybe, who knows, something could happen in Europe. And also, he doesn't even know at the end of the season if he's going to be the manager or he's going to be the sporting director. He knows he's going to be an advisory role, but that could change as well. So the last thing he needs is players going, am I going to be playing? Or do you think you could fit me in for this game? Well, I'm not happy because I'm not playing. You might like, I don't have time. I don't have time for that. So yeah, I think players will be leaving in January, but that is what that is. But that was the press conference. I mean, if anything, I've spoken about it longer than what the press conference was. The press conference was 7 minutes, so wasn't a ton to really break down, but some interesting things there, especially when he pertains to Paul Pogba and the possible outgoings in January and all that kind of stuff, and especially when it comes to team news as well. David Lee says tomorrow's game could be off due to COVID-19. I did see the Norwich was saying that, or Dean Smith had said that they had quite a few issues with COVID. I'm just seeing if that was if anything more has come up about that, but I did see similar things. So I haven't seen anything specific. I mean, again, the outbreak when it came to obviously Spurs was really bad, wasn't it? I mean, it still was really bad, and I really did feel for Antonio Conte. I don't know if you saw those interviews that he did. I felt horrible for him, and he was speaking very emotionally and very passionately, as he should, when he was saying, "Look, you know, why should I risk my wife and my daughter at home and all this kind of stuff? It's constant anxiety." So I feel for him. Ultimately, and I don't mean to seem callous or horrible when it comes to this, when it comes to Norwich, if it's 2 or 3 players, the rules are that you can't cancel the game for that. So if it is just a couple of players, it's unfortunate for Norwich, but those are the rules at the moment. So, yeah, but that one will develop. When it comes to the game, let's get into the game tomorrow, because again, with everything that's going on, whether it's Anthony Martial saying he wants to leave or possible outcomings or all this kind of stuff, we'll talk about the game. No slip-ups. That's the first thing I wrote down when I was thinking, what do I want to say about tomorrow's game? No slip-ups. Norwich are bottom of the table. They've only had 2 wins all season, one of which, well, they both came back-to-back, didn't they? It was Daniel Farke's last game, and then it was Dean Smith's first game. But that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Man United coming to town for any club, regardless if they're top of the league or bottom of the league, is always a big occasion, and it always makes it difficult for United. Carrow Road will be bouncing. They'll be up for it. I would say they're probably playing better football under Dean Smith, different football. They're certainly not playing the same style of football they were playing under Daniel Farke, but then you could also argue that the style of football they were playing under Farke, whilst it was attractive at times, you can be attractive as one of the bigger sides in the Championship, but if you're a relegation candidate, sometimes you have to use some of the dark arts of football, unfortunately. And it would appear that Dean Smith was more willing to do that, playing a bit more direct, and that's been helping Norwich. But they're still bottom of the table, and make no mistake, despite the atmosphere and despite the trip and all that kind of stuff, Manchester United should be winning this game comfortably. Dean Smith, of course, does have a victory over Manchester United this season. He was the Aston Villa manager when they beat us at Old Trafford, but this is a very different situation from that. He has a lesser squad than he has at Aston Villa. He has a different side. We have a different manager. He's manager of a different team, and we have a different system at this point. So I don't think you can really compare the two to the last time we faced off against a Dean Smith side. Ultimately, when it comes to Manchester United, though, and what we hope to see, or certainly what I hope to see from the game tomorrow, we did see glimpses and flashes of what Ralf Rangnick wants from Manchester United going forward in the 1-0 victory over Palace last weekend. I do think the 4-2-2 formation returns. And for the first 30 minutes, of course, against Crystal Palace, we were strong. We pressed well. We did look like a different side. The only thing we didn't get were the goals. We didn't really create a ton of chances, it must be said, but there were certainly encouraging signs there. And a lot of people were saying, myself included, man, what happens when we get 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, a couple of months of Ralf Rangnick really implementing this style and this philosophy and this tactical system into the side? That can be very exciting and encouraging. We did control the game. We had significantly more possession than I think we've had this season. We had more touches in the opposition box than we'd had in all of our Premier League games this season. We won possession in the final third, the most times we had since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. And stats can be manipulated and all that kind of stuff, but there were encouraging signs. There were certainly very encouraging signs in that game, and hopefully that will continue tomorrow. Obviously, we talk about the exciting first half hour we had, but we did drop off, and I think there was a variety of reasons as to why we did drop off. Energy, obviously, fatigue, not being familiar with the formation. It was the same starting 11 that played just days prior against Arsenal. There was, a 3-day break, 2-day break. So there were a variety of reasons why we dropped off. So hopefully we can sustain that for a bit longer. But there is a lot to be optimistic about. Now, obviously, that could all change like that if we lose to where we play terrible. But I don't think we will. I don't think we will. that performance that we saw, which there were encouraging signs last weekend, that performance we saw was, as Rangnick said, was after one 45-minute training session on the Saturday and a lot of video footage and analysis. Let's see what happens. Let's see what can happen after a full week of training. Let's see what can happen after a full week of preparation. Let's see what can happen after a full week of video analysis. Let's see what happens when the starting players, certainly that starting 11, have been rested for a week and they've got a full week of preparation behind them. They didn't play against Young Boys. I'm not sure you can really take a lot from that game on Wednesday against Young Boys, because there were 11 changes plus the youth players that came in as well, plus a different formation. It wasn't even the 4-2-2, it was a 4-3-2, wasn't it, formation as well. So I don't really think you can take a lot from that game in midweek, to be honest with you. This week, albeit against a lesser side that we're expected to beat, this week should really go a step further as to showing or demonstrating what Ralf Rangnick wants from the Manchester United side going forward. We should see greater control. We should see certainly a more intense pressing, or maybe not more intense, but more sustained. I think that would be the thing. A more sustained press, not just lasting 30 minutes. It should be lasting the first half and certainly the majority of the second half. But we should continue to see this control of the game continue. And I think he'll be hoping for that. He'd be hoping to see more forward passes. I'm excited. I'm excited about the game. I'm always excited to watch Manchester United play because, of course, I'm a Manchester United fan. But there has been a feeling of, anticipation for these games. There is a feeling of, man, we could see a real performance here. And I think that's the important thing. We should see a real performance tomorrow. I'm curious as well because, again, I think he will stick with that 4-2-2. But I'm curious as well to see, can much change in an extra week? Can much change with this extra week of training? Can much change with the first 11 being rested? And I hope to see that. And ultimately, I would love for United to make a statement tomorrow. I'd love for them to beat Norwich 3-0, 4-0, put a marker down. And, I know it's not that simple. Football is never, ever that simple. Sometimes games are tough, specifically, again, against the lower sides or bottom of the league or away games. Every game in Premier League can be difficult. I know it's not that simple, but I'd love for United to really put a marker down tomorrow, and I hope that they do. We haven't been doing that this season. We haven't. Apart from that opening performance on the opening day of the season when we won 5-1, that was a performance where everyone's put back and went, wow, that was quite impressive by United. But since then, there really hasn't been a performance that's been very complete and sort of dominating. And I think tomorrow is a great time to do that. And if we do put a marker down tomorrow, just the work that would do for the squad as well, again, talking about believing in what Ralf Rangnick's offering, believing in what he's saying, believing in this new system, believing in this new philosophy, winning a game 3 or 4-0 tomorrow can really go great lengths to doing that. So it's an important game. It really is tomorrow. But I'm optimistic. I am optimistic that we can do that tomorrow. But also as well, I talk about 3-0, 4-0, etc. The clean sheet's just as important. We got a clean sheet against Crystal Palace, and that was, apart from the 3 points, that was arguably the biggest thing about it, wasn't it? Is that we didn't concede goals. We have been shipping goals this season. We've actually been shipping goals this season, as Rangnick said, averaging about 2 goals conceded per game. A clean sheet against Palace was a big deal, and we won a clean sheet against Norwich too. Now, make no mistake, if we win 4 or 5-1, you'll be like, oh, that was okay. But they'll still focus on that clean sheet because that is an issue going forward. If we can start building up in the same vein, we can start building up performances. I talk about complete performances. We also want to be building up keeping clean sheets as well. But I think that goes back to when it comes to the defensive situation as well. So when it does come to team news for tomorrow's game, again, Wan-Bissaka, we don't know. As Rangnick said in the press conference earlier on, we'll have to wait and see. I think it means that Dalo probably starts at right back. They didn't ask about Luke Shaw in the press conference. Of course, he played 60 minutes on Wednesday. He's still returning from having 2 concussions in a short period of time. So I'm sure there's a protocol for that as well. So I don't think he starts either. I think it'll probably be Tellez as well. I think Greenwood, of course, scored a great goal in the week, played well. Rangnick's been talking about him. He might be in contention to start too. But people talking about Rafael Varane, Edison Cavani, whilst he wasn't asked about them in the press conference, he did suggest prior to the game against Young Boys that it might be too early for them to play against Norwich at the weekend, even though they're back in training. They're both back on the grass. We saw that in the pictures of the training session prior to the young boys game. Both of them, he said they're not going to be rushed back. Specifically, he mentioned about Rafael Varane because of his injury record. The last thing they want to do is rush him back and then lose him for an even longer period of time. So I don't think maybe you might see Cavani on the bench, but I think that's unlikely. I don't think any of them will start them. And I would be surprised if they were involved. Again, I think a game against Norwich away from home isn't the game to rush him back for. I don't think so. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary for them to be rushed back. I want them to take their time with that. So hopefully we'll see that. As we spoke about previously, Paul Pogba, he's due back today from his time in Dubai in that warm weather training as he recovers from his injury sustained on international duty. So of course he's not going to play. Martial. We started the stream talking about Martial and his desire to leave Manchester United, according to his agent, of course. Again, he wasn't asked about that, Rangnick. He wasn't asked about that in the press conference, but I think that's because the story when it came to Martial was just breaking at that period of time, so he wasn't asked about that. He'll be asked about it going forward. I have no doubts about that. But it appears that he won't be involved as well. As I mentioned, he had a knee problem before the game against Palace. He didn't obviously play against young boys either, so I would assume that maybe he will not be involved either. Tomorrow we'll have to wait and see. When it comes to Norwich team news, because you always got to talk about the opposition as well, he's invested his faith quite a lot in loanees such as Brandon Williams, Billy Gilmore. Of course, Brandon Williams is a Manchester United player. He's on loan, so he's ineligible for the game tomorrow. There have been a few COVID issues when it comes to Norwich as well. Players such as Matthias Norman should be available, but Milo Rashica and Christoph Zimmermann are looked to be ruled out. Todd Cantwell is back after a COVID-related absence, but as I mentioned, Dean Smith said that there might be some positive tests, maybe. Some players have reported feeling unwell. That's a bit of a developing one, so we'll have to wait and see about that. Again, if it's really bad, like it was against Spurs, and didn't they play? They played Spurs last week, so that might be the concern, is that they played Spurs and then Spurs had this outbreak, so could we be seeing these Norwich players in a bit of a similar situation? If it is 2 or 3, ultimately the game will go ahead. If it's significantly more than that, it'll be a decision to make closer on, but we'll see. As of right now, the game's on, and we'll continue to talk as if it is going to be. In terms of a predicted lineup, again, I think the 4-2-2 will continue. And this is the interesting one. I'll get into my predicted lineup in a second, but what's your predicted lineup for tomorrow? It's an interesting one. Matthew says, Martial, Pogba, Lingard, Matic, Henson, Phil Jones, all bye-bye. Again, I think there will be a significant amount. I really do think there'll be a significant amount of departures in January. Martial Arts or Martial Arts? Martial Arts? Wow. Is it Anthony Martial Arts or just Martial Arts? It says hit that like button. Yes, guys, we still got over 750 people watching. Only 300 likes. Got to pump up those numbers. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. On the road to 100K. We recently hit 90k subscribers here on the channel, so the next goal is 100. When we can make it happen, I don't know. Maybe it can be a Christmas miracle. Who knows? But as always, we really do appreciate your support here on the channel. We're just starting, we're growing, we're doing our thing, and it's a lot of fun. And we've got a great community here, a real diverse community, a global community, and it's always fun. I live for doing these kind of streams because of the interaction that we have, and just great discussion. It's great. And not even with just, I've said this before as well, not even just Man United fans of anyone, fans of football. You don't have to be a Man United fan to watch this channel. You can be a football fan. You can just talk about whatever you want, and that's always a lot of fun. Red Alert Ace says the same as last week. You might be onto something there, Red Alert. David Lee says, De Gea, Dalot, Lindelof, Maguire, Shaw, Fred, McTominay, Bruno, Sancho, Ronaldo, Rashford. Interesting. So this is the team that I think will start. I'm going to go with De Gea in goal, obviously. I think Dalot keeps his spot, as he should. Irrespective, to be honest, of Wan-Bissaka's injury woes. I think that Dalot played very well last week, and Wan-Bissaka really didn't do anything to sort of convince me of, he needs to be in, he needs to be playing tomorrow. I really didn't see that, and given the injury stuff, I think it's nailed on that Dalot will start. Centre-backs, I think it will be Maguire and Lindelof. Ultimately, I think it should be Eric Bailly instead of Maguire right now. I think eventually it should be Bailly and Varane, to be honest with you, but I think that's very unlikely to happen, unfortunately. I just think, Maguire was all right in the last game. I thought Lindelof played very well against Crystal Palace, it must be said. But we talk about people suiting the formation, suiting the system, suiting the style of football that Ralf Rangnick wants to play. Are you telling me that in the same vein like Wan-Bissaka, he doesn't fit? There's technical issues, all this kind of stuff. Maguire's kind of the same. Maguire's game against Palace, he looked uncomfortable. He looked really uncomfortable. Bailly didn't. Bailly looked very comfortable. Lindelof looked comfortable. Varane will look comfortable in that system. But Maguire will start tomorrow because, again, it's political. He's the captain. He's £8 million. And Rangnick's got a firefight. And it's just that's not an issue that he probably wants to address right now. But should be Bailly, but it won't. It'll be Maguire and Lindelof. Left back, I think Telles will continue. As I mentioned, I don't think Telles did anything wrong. I thought he played very well, actually, in the game against Crystal Palace. I thought he played well against Arsenal as well. He's arguably putting in his best performances in a Manchester United shirt recently, so I think he should continue. Also, when it comes to Luke Shaw as well, as I mentioned, he's still on the recovery. He played 60 minutes specifically for a reason on Wednesday as he comes back from concussion, so I talk about not rushing back people like Rafael Varane and like Edison Cavani, etc. It's the same when it comes to Luke Shaw. This isn't the time, and it's certainly not the game to be like, oh, Luke Shaw needs to be back to play Norwich in the Premier League. No, you got Telles. He's playing well. Play him. So I think Telles will start. So I think the back four will be unchanged from the game against Crystal Palace last weekend. Speaking of unchanged, I think we will see McTominay and Fred in those two deeper roles as the two sixes in this 4-2-2 formation. Obviously, Fred played very well against Palace, and I think he has been playing very well for United recently. Of course, he's made some mistakes, but that's what Fred does. McTominay, Ralf seemed relatively happy with McTominay against Palace as well. He was very happy with the two sixes, so I think they will. I think they'll play against Norwich. I do think we'll probably try and get another 6 in January. I really do. Whether that's people for the guy from Leipzig or maybe someone else, I do think that's an area we'll look to improve in January. But as of right now, it's going to be McTominay and Fred. And then as the two advanced players, the two 10s, if you will, not wingers, attacking midfielders, licensed to roam, should initiate the press and all that kind of stuff. I think it'll probably remain Bruno and Sancho from last weekend. It was interesting, actually, Rangnick talking about that after the game when he said, like, they did well. It's arguably the most difficult position, but they did well. I think they'll grow into it. But I think it'll probably be Bruno and Sancho. And then when it comes to the front two, obviously Ronaldo. I think the talking point, though, is it going to be Rashford or Greenwood? You mentioned that they trained in two, and I think it's very likely we could see an unchanged lineup from Crystal Palace last weekend. But given how Greenwood played, the goal he got, and that Rashford has kind of been underperforming recently. I say kind of. He has been underperforming recently. He hasn't been in particularly good form. I wouldn't rule out it being Ronaldo and Greenwood. I really wouldn't. I'm probably leaning more into Ronaldo and Rashford. I think that's more likely going to happen. But if it was me, I would say, you know what? Greenwood played well in the week. Rashford hasn't been up to, he's playing at his best potential. I'd go with Greenwood and Ronaldo. But I think the most likely situation is probably the unchanged lineup from Palace. As far as predictions, you know me, I'm not great on predictions, and all I care about is the United win. I'm going to go with a 2-0. Again, I would love for them to lay down a marker. I would love for it to be 3-0, 4-0, 5-0. I think it's possible. I think it really is possible. But I still think we're in early days, and I think that I don't think we'll drop off as much as we did against Crystal Palace as quickly, but I think there will still be a drop-off. We're still in sort of teething issues when it comes to this formation and this philosophy as well, so I think we might have difficult moments still, but the most important thing, as I mentioned, is clean sheet, and I hope for them to put down a bigger marker than they did against Palace. Even though there were optimistic parts against Crystal Palace, I hope that we put down a bigger marker, and I think we can. I really think we can. Muscle Grows Saying says, yes, Owen, consider live 100k subbed with the team. There you go. We're on the road to 100k. Appreciate the super chat. Appreciate the contribution. Vera says, I think no game tomorrow. Well, again, we'll have to wait and see. The Norwich thing is kind of developing, isn't it? But if it's a couple of players, it will stay on. If it's more, then maybe that might change, but we'll see. But again, my prediction for the game, I'm going to go with 2-0. We're still in the early days. Hopefully the performances will come. But right now, he said it in his first press conference, even Michael Carrick said it in his first press conference when he was the caretaker manager, it's just about results. Right now, it's all about results when it comes to Manchester United. Performances, they can be great. Clean sheets, they'll be great. But it's about results. We just need to be winning games. We've got such a great run of games in the Premier League until March. It's March, then we have to play Man City. But between then, I think it's only it's nobody in the traditional top 6 that we would be playing. And I think in terms of top 4, it's only West Ham we have to play. And that's at Old Trafford as well. So we've got a great run of games going into the new year. So we've really got to make the most of it. And we've got a lot of ground to make up, but the possibility is there to make that ground up. And especially now, given the coach we have in charge, given the tactical system, given everything, it's a very good time to be a Manchester United fan. There's a lot of optimism surrounding the club for the first time in a while. So I'm very excited. But what's your prediction? Let me know your prediction for tomorrow's game, and then we'll wrap it up. Again, I'm going to go with 2-0. But my hope is that it's bigger than that. I do think we can get a 3 or 4-0. But I'm probably going to go with 2-0 because I just think it's early days. I really think it's early days, and it depends. Reggie says 13 or more people in the squad. I think that includes coaching staff too. Is that about how many people need to be available or how many people have been infected? We'll see. David Lee says 4-1 United. So yeah, I could see a big result. Absolutely. Nustum says 3-0. Reggie says I'm going for a postponed. I guess that's a prediction. Tara says 3-0. Ronaldo hat-trick. Ronaldo certainly will want to be getting goals tomorrow. There's no doubt about that. Austin Baker says, like the video. Yes, like the video. As I mentioned, we've still got over 700 people watching. Less than 4 likes away from 350. So let's see if we can get to like 400 before I wrap things up briefly. Nathan says, yes, we need to win all of the games, but we have to improve as a team so we can beat the top teams. 5-1 United. Appreciate the chat. Jedi Pyro says, Norwich 0, Manchester United 4. I appreciate the correct formatting as well. Jedi Pyro. Nice. Marlon Clark says another 5-0, lol. What? To Norwich? I mean, that would be horrible. That would be horrible. So Hill says 3-0, Ronaldo brace. Marlon said 5-1. King says, send Martial to Newcastle on loan to the summer. Cavani leaves the club in the summer. Haaland is available. Sell Martial to Dortmund for 50 million and buy Haaland for 65. Again, I wish football was that simple, but unfortunately it's not. It's not. So we'll see. Anyway, guys, look, we'll wrap it up here. I've been going for over an hour already. Time flies when you're having a lot of fun. So, as I mentioned, be sure to smash a like on the video. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. What's on tap for the rest of the weekend? Obviously, tomorrow, match day, obviously. So, we'll have the full match day experience. We'll have the road trip with Flex. We'll have the match view with KG. We'll have the match reaction with myself after the game. And then we'll have all of the fan views outside Carrow Road. Hopefully, fingers crossed, discussing a positive result for Manchester United. The following day, again, the plan is to do the full view the next day. It depends on availability. You know, it's that time of the year where people are busy. People have, we do have lives where people are busy with family stuff, whatever. So the aim is to do a full view. Well, hopefully we can. If not, something will happen on Sunday anyway. So we'll do that. And then next week, there's a load of midweek games, isn't there? So we're heading rapidly in to the festive period of football, which means a lot of games. So now is the best time to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and you won't miss a single thing. Anyway, guys, have a good Friday, and fingers crossed for the game tomorrow. I'll speak to you again very, very soon.